Start within your creative circle, you're the person who often tells others whether an idea is good or not. What was your initial reaction when your producer Adam Mitchell and co-writer Zach Weiner came up to you with this idea?
It was almost an immediate yes, because I think the barometer is I think Jordan Peele says like a movie that you'd want to watch is the movie you should make. And I even like try to expedite that and say if you told me this movie existed, I'd put it on tonight. And this was one of like a Shabbat dinner in an or modern Orthodox world that we don't really see portrayed. And if we
Mhm.
can do that authentically with the whole dead body tension and how those families actually interact, um, it would be like lightning in a bottle.
This movie definitely is lightning in a bottle. You have such an incredible ensemble as part of this film, and they elevate each other's performances, and so many of them are versed in the comedy space. As a co-writer and director, how do you foster that environment where they can take ownership of these characters and bring their own interpretation? And how much of what we see in this final product is scripted versus improvised?
In terms of performance, it's all them. Like before showing up on set, like we might have conversations or I'll send some songs or ideas of backstory or
Hmm.
where they come from, or how they might interact. But once we show up, like the only job I try to do is make the environment as friendly as possible for them. So that means like try to eliminate time pressure, let them know they can do as many takes as they want, and they can always ask for an extra one and just allow a space where they can be like as good as they can possibly be because these actors are all like top pros and they know the tone, they know exactly how to make this as good as possible. And then in terms of the dialogue on the page versus improv, it's probably like 90 to 95% scripted. Um, but on set we try different alts, like when I don't want to like call out moments except with the exception of I think John Bass and Milana Weintraub, who do like they're like improv pros. Like a lot of their lines go in different directions. And also Cliff Method Man Smith, because he's always like
Hmm.
he's a writer and he's written some of the craziest lyrics ever. So he also has like he's riffing a lot in his scenes. So I think both of them have a higher percentage of improv, but generally it's all pretty scripted just so we can maintain that breakneck pace. Because once you go to
Hmm.
improv territory, it could kind of like get fat and like weigh the movie down. So we need to try to keep it efficient and funny, which is a challenge.
In that same vein, while you have these over-the-top characters in this crisis situation, there's such a groundedness in everybody's performance. How were you able to toe that line so seamlessly? And what's more difficult, keeping the cast on the rails or Zach?
Or Zach. Um, I don't I don't know. The cast just like was unbelievable. I mean, we talked about how the tone should be pretty grounded, and then some characters, I think in a comedy, you need the characters that have to be like, oh, these are real people. So that's like, John Bass, Megan Leathers. They're kind of the POV of the audience. So we need them to be like closest to reality. But then once you
Hmm.
get like the dad, David Paymer, and even Method Man, like they could elevate to different levels because we're not relying on them as much for the buy-in. And then in terms of getting the tone right, John Bass at a point, because he plays the lead, he's like, "Do you want me to one, a two, or a three?" It's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "One is just completely grounded, two is in the middle, three is just ridiculous." Like I could, and I was like, "Let's try a one," and then he'd do that. He's like, "You want like let's do a three," and then he could just find like an authentic way to get to each of those levels. And then
Hmm.
throughout the movie, depending on the scene, we would dial it up or down to see what's funniest, and also without, you know, breaking that string of believability.
Hmm.
So
I feel
sometimes
like
this is three, but it was usually like a two category. And it's amazing that that's all he needed.
yeah. And I mean, you've got a cast who can play with all those different levels. And I feel like when audiences see this film, they're gonna see these cast of characters and they're gonna feel so familiar to them. Who's a character in the script that you most resonate with and why?
I wish I could say Method Man, but I think I could go on like a 30-year retreat of trying to improve my coolness, and I still wouldn't get close. Um, Probably the dad, like David's dad, who's always talking about self-help ideas and trying to be
Hmm.
very professional to solve situations while everyone's like yelling at him how it's not helpful. I feel like I generally try to solve problems in a very loving, understanding, try to use like this thing I just heard on a podcast way, and it just makes everyone around me infuriated. Um, so probably him.
Yeah, so also kudos to your sound mixer because in those scenes where everything gets heightened, there's such a great balance between nostalgia and suspense, and so much of that film takes shape during that final edit. What were the discoveries that you made during that process that maybe were less prevalent than in filming?
During the edit, the script was so tight because Adam, the producer, is like he has a almost a journalist background and he's
Mm,
so precise on just iterating it until it's so everything is there. And also we had so many readers reading the script. Like it's not just we don't keep it a secret. I've shared it with like my mom, my siblings, like a bunch of my friends, and we all get their feedback and also some writer friends like Sass, Emily, and others. And then by the time we get to the edit, like Kate's most impressive feat, I think, on this whole movie was one, like finding that tonal line with performance because we're getting variations in each.
mhm,
Make sure that that's smooth, that we keep this really fast pace. And then the dinner scene, which I think the actual Shabbat dinner is like 20 minutes.
mhm.
And I remember when we got to it, I said, I just don't know how we're going to edit this. Like, it's so many angles. I think it was like 12 hours of footage. And she has a background in doc, and she's like, oh, I'll figure it out. And she just like went through everything and put it together, like finding the right reactions at the right points. And it became one of the best scenes in the movie. But that was the thing I was most concerned about in the edit. And then for the sound mix, I mean, our recorders on set, Jose and Chris, just somehow got like 10 to 12 actors sounding great. And then Kenny and George and sound just, perfected it to feel real and then a little crazy when we wanted to go
Yeah.
there.
I love the heightenedness of it. And then, speaking of that nostalgia, this film is such a great throwback to comedies of the past. What were some of the projects that inspired this film? And as a storyteller, what is that piece of art that's had the biggest impact on your journey as a storyteller?
Oh, question. The films that probably inspired this most were those early 2000 comedies like Meet the Parents and My Big Fat Greek Wedding,
Mm,
where it's these super authentic stories. And the more you get into that specificity, the funnier it gets. Um, and our goal was to kind of make something in that vein where we're showing the subculture very authentically, and then the content of it is just as funny as it can possibly be. And in terms of a specific movie that had an effect on me, my favorite movies don't, I don't know. I think in terms of like a creator, I guess, it's like the Mike Nichols, Woody Allen, Ernst
mm,
Lubitsch territory of people who wrote very fast-paced, um, creative,
yeah.
funny films that usually hover around, I don't know if they all hover around 90 minutes, but are generally on the shorter side. Um, and trying to make something of that style just with the pace and kinetic energy for
Yeah.
an audience was like the goal here. But I don't know if there's one specific film between those three where I was like, that's the one. Um, I'll keep thinking.
No, that pacing is such a great point too. I think with all the films that you've done, it's like one of those things where you watch it one time and you immediately want to watch it again. You're discovering new things that second time around. As a New York-based filmmaker, Tribeca is the pinnacle of the festivals that you want your movie to premiere at. What was your reaction when you got the news that you got in, and how do you plan on celebrating?
And I guess I was happy initially, but I've been rejected so many times that I kind of prepared myself for rejection. So even when Adam told me, I was still like numb to whatever the response was going to be. But then after he explained how good it would be for, sales and people seeing the movie, I like
Mhm.
to my excitement
Yeah,
level.
you touched on this already, but one of the motivations behind the film was highlighting that the middle area between secular life and religion, one of the cornerstones of media, is to make others feel seen. And I feel like this project is going to resonate with so many. What do you hope they take away after they see it at Tribeca?
In terms of religion, like the new thing we wanted to offer with this film is that typically religion is shown as some oppressive relic that the parents force on the kids, and it's not additive to your life, and it's something that has to be tossed away so you can reach like self-transcendence and independence. But I think now a lot of people are actually flocking towards community life, whether that's religion or bike groups or anything. And I think the feeling in this film is that religion isn't something that needs to be tossed away, but is something that could kind of give a framework to life that leads to a happier and more fulfilling life sometimes.
Hmm.
I like it sounds obvious, but I don't see that portrayed
Yeah.
in the films that I watch. So maybe people will take that away, or they'll take something completely insane away, and I'll say it's up to the audience.
They definitely will take that away. And speaking of going back to your ensemble, when you were co-writing this with Zach, did you have these actors in mind? How did this all come together?
We didn't have these actors in mind. We didn't think these actors would read the script or say yes. But then through Adam, our producer, and Seth White, Cody Beek, Daniel Frankel, the casting directors, they sent it to their reps. Some reps didn't read this, but our top choices, like an agent named Brian Boone, like he genuinely read the script, like saw the potential, and he shared it with his clients, like Kira Sedgwick, Cliff Method Man Smith, and all what I've made before this. It's like a crazy the council movie and like a low budget horror movie. And I was like, I'm glad they like the script. They're not gonna sign on to this, but Kira like really had belief that that the material was gonna be great and that I wouldn't fuck it up too much. And I think Cliff Method Man Smith also, like he loves movies. Like he has an encyclopedic knowledge and he saw the energy of this and what it could be. So then he also joined on John Bass, Milana, like the whole crew. Just it was like it's not an Avengers, but a lot of great
Yeah.
people, a lot of great people came together and made.
Yeah, it's star-studded. I got one final question for you. It's a perfect segue too. I think you're one of the most exciting filmmakers of this generation, and every project that you've worked on is so unexpected. What's next for you?
I mean, I'm probably gonna get that quote like tattooed on my stomach. So I see it when I look in the mirror in the morning. After that, we have like three scripts in the works with Zach and Adam, and we're trying to figure out which one is should be the next one. Because they're all three things we all want to see made and we're all like thrilled about, but it's just about what could get made. And I guess it's how it's how well this movie does
This movie
determine
as
what the
well.
project is. If it's like a home run, there's like that budget. If it's like just fine, and there's like, okay, we can do this one. And then if, I get canceled for something, there's like the emergency project that I could just make with with minimum resources. So I'm always ready for it.